Welcome to MyLife Chassidus Applied, episode 498. Special Lag B'Omer edition. Happy Lag B'Omer. Yom Simchasei Shel Rashbi. The day of Rashbi's rejoicing, asking us all to rejoice in his special day, Lag B'Omer. Yom Hilula, Yom Istalkus of the Rashbi, as we shall discuss. This program is in loving memory of Miriam Bas Eliyahu Altes Aleha Shalom and in merit of Baruch ben Yamin ben Menuchalana Altes, Yekusil ben Leah Rochel and Rochel Bas Liba Farkash, dedicated by Pinchas Todris ben Miriam and Sarah Bas Rochel Altes. So indeed, Lag B'Omer is an extraordinary day. I saw it personally, as many of us did, celebrating with the Rebbe year after year, especially when Lag B'Omer came out on a Sunday and there was a parade organized for the children from all over, and the Rebbe would come out and speak and glow. I mean, hard to describe the power of it. But it's also a deeply spiritual day. And we will discuss all of that in this special program. And above all, Chassidus Applied, applying it to our lives and our personal lives, how we can draw from it strength and confidence and hope and clarity, especially in these challenging times in Eretz Yisrael and all over the world. Before I go to that, I'd like to begin by formally announcing the launch of our MyLife 500 campaign. As I just mentioned, episode 498. So we're coming close, edging closer to the 500th episode. We're talking about over 10 years of episodes, Sunday after Sunday, of MyLife Chassidus Applied. Yeah, who would believe? So to mark the 500th episode, we're launching a special campaign. Please go to mylife500.com and please participate. It's a crowdfunding campaign where our goal is to reach $500,000. And it's not just to cover the weekly programs, which also is quite expensive. These programs are free for the public. They require funds to produce the programs, to research, to actually do the video and all the post-production and pre-production. But as you'll see on the site, there's also a few goals that many of you have asked of creating maybe an AI-generated content that you can actually ask and search for anything that was done and discussed in the last 500 episodes and get a written response, excuse me. As well as our goal is to perhaps publish a book or two or more of these 500 episodes. We're talking about close to 600 hours. The episodes are often more than an hour, 600 hours of material, and we intend to try to reach as many people as possible and expand in every possible way. I think for those that have listened to this program, or if you're listening for the first time, pretty much appreciate, but it's always good to emphasize, this program is completely generated by you. It's to address your personal dilemmas. Every individual has their challenges. We have family challenges, educational ones, personal ones, psychological, emotional. Where do we go for answers? So we were given a Torah, and we have Chassidus, and the Alter Rebbe says in Chassidus and Tanya you can find all the answers, all the eitzes, but we don't always have the capacity to translate it. So the objective of this program is to do exactly that. And the questions that have come in, I was quite surprised that this program would last more than a year or two. I thought, after a while, how many more questions can there be? But it touched a nerve, a chord, and people have been asking questions, some of the most difficult questions, to be honest, very difficult ones. Questions that others would consider taboo. Nothing is taboo. You can bring any question you wish. You can address any topic. And that's exactly what I've done over the years. To be honest, if there's any critique, it's I couldn't answer all the questions because they're coming faster than I can cover. We get over 100 questions a week. It's impossible to cover 100 questions every week. So I apologize for those that are delayed somewhat. I try to consolidate them, do the best we can, especially matters that are timely. But the program has changed my life in so many ways, and I know it's changed some of your lives for the good, for the better. There was one rabbi who was very critical, I remember early on, and he said to me, a rabbi, very well respected rabbi, and he said to me, but then he said, I saw the mere fact, the validation, the dignity that people felt that they could ask a question. I'm not even getting into the answers. The answers, he says, now he listens avidly. He does not miss a program. If he travels, he listens to it later. He says, the mere fact that you voice and allow people a platform to ask any question, that alone, he sees tremendous value in that. And then, of course, there are the answers. And as always, the answers, often I turn to you and say, please, help me out here. Maybe you have a source, maybe you have a story, maybe you have a different way of approaching it. So I find it to be a very interactive and engaging platform, even though I'm doing the speaking right now, but it is a result of all your questions and comments. So please keep it coming. And now I turn to you to partner with us. The truth is we're always partners, but to partner specifically in the financial side of it, as I said, it does cost money. We give it for free, no complaints. We're not charging for it. So give generously. Any amount that you like to give, go to mylife500.com. You'll see a campaign there, and it's live. Now it's public, and please participate in any way you can. If you want, you can create a team, which means to introduce others to this program, and perhaps also get them to contribute. And let's get the word out. The key goal is ultimately Mola Oris Deus Hashem Kamayim Layom Achasim, to fill the world with divine knowledge. Yefutza Meinesecha Chutza, as Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov, to spread, to disseminate, to distribute the well springs. Deus Hashem Chutza, to Ein Chutza, Acha Ein Chutza Mimenu, Chutza She'ein Chutza Mimenu, to the farthest outskirts, both physically, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, to reach everyone. Chassidus has the answers to our most pressing questions, our challenges, whether it's our own, whether it's our family, whether it's with spouses, whether it's children. I mean, the list goes on every category possible. We've covered many, many, many questions, and we will cover many more. Thousands covered and thousands more to cover. So I thank you ahead of time. Please participate. Please partner with us. Okay. With that, let's go straight into Lag B'Omer. What does Lag B'Omer teach us today? Now, we're living in a time of challenge. I don't like to use the word crisis, but it's a challenge. Our enemies have attacked and have killed and murdered and all the atrocities. And right now, our brothers and sisters are in danger. There are soldiers on front lines that unfortunately have fallen and sacrificing themselves. Hashem should protect them, and they should have no more challenges, and it should all be over, and the hostages should be released. But the facts are on the ground. So we're always looking from the parsha, from the Yom Tov, from the schedule, from the calendar. What can we draw from? What about Lag B'Omer? Let's start with what does Lag B'Omer teach us, and then we'll discuss Lag B'Omer itself. But I think most important thing is to start with its timeliness. So two Maimonides Chazal, let's talk about. Kedai Rabbi Shimon lichsmoich alav b'shas adchak. You can rely on Rabbi Shimon. Kedai b'shas adchak, when we're in a dire strait, when we're in distress, when we're pressured, when there's difficulties. So Lag B'Omer is mamish that. We are now a shas adchak. We have plenty of blessings, but it's a shas adchak, and Rabbi Shimon, his special day, stands before us. Lismach alav, we rely on you, and we invoke your name, and we invoke everything you did, your Mesiras Nefesh. The second Maimonides Chazal, Rashbi himself says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he says, I can alleviate, lifter, the whole world from judgment. Din is judgment, all judgments, all severities. So these two Maimonides Chazal stand out so strongly, especially today. The Munkach, the Minchas Elazar teaches b'shas adchak is b'shas hagolos. It's talking about every golos. And indeed, Rabbi Hilula Parish, in the name of the Alter Rebbe, writes that by Rashbi there was no golos, there was no churban. The temple was destroyed, but he was on a level higher than Golos, a Guladika level. Which explains further why he has that power to help us get through Shas Chak and all the consequences and derivatives of Golos, of Adar Golos. So that's the first thing we do, is we reach out to Rashbi on this special day like Lag B'Omer. Yidden all over the world celebrating. And celebrating, as he asked us, Simchas Rashbi. So that's a good opening. But let's talk about why Take does Rashbi have this power? And what's the special quality of Lag B'Omer? What happened Lag B'Omer? I mean, Rashbi is all year round. He lived. What happened Lag B'Omer? Why is this day so special? So, the Rebbe sums it up. Two things that happen on Lag B'Omer. One is that the epidemic that caused 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva students to die, because Lein Nogu Kovid Zebes, as the Gemara says in Yevamos. They didn't respect each other. They didn't show respect to each other. The epidemic stopped on Lag B'Omer, which is why during the first till Lag B'Omer we don't make weddings, no music, it's a certain type of mourning and grieving. Lag B'Omer, you see weddings, you see music, precisely for that reason. There's opinions. What about after Lag B'Omer? Did it resume? But Lag B'Omer it stopped. Why did it stop on Lag B'Omer? One of the reasons is because Lag B'Omer is the second thing, and that is the Yom Hilula, the Yom Istalkus, and Yom Simchos, as Rashbi later requested, of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on Lag B'Omer. So Lag B'Omer is a special day. We know the Yom Hilula of a tzaddik. The Alter Rebbe writes in the Geras HaKedesh, all his Aveda gathers together, elevates, and Poel Yeshua is Bekedav Haaretz. It affects redemption, salvations, even in the depths of the abyss, in the depths of this world. Again, B'Shas Chak. And therefore, there's a special connection, there's special power that we have, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Simach of Zayin, Simach of Ches, and the Geras HaKedesh, the power of a stalkus, a Hilula of a tzaddik. Especially what it does for his Talmidim and those that studied his disciples. So Lag B'Omer has that power. And indeed we see in Pri Eitz Chaim and the Maimorim of the Alter Rebbe, including Sidrim Dach, the discussion and explanation of Lag B'Omer. So what is this about Rashbi? There were many Tanoim, great Tanoim. Rabbi Akiva, of course. What is it about Rashbi? So before I go to that, there was a question, what is the source that Lag B'Omer is the day of Rashbi's Hilula? The source that we have explicitly is the whole story of Rashbi's Histalkus is in Idra Zuta, which is parsha Sazinu and Zohar Chele Gimel, but it doesn't say what day it was. In Pri Eitz Chaim, Shar Sfiras HaEmer, chapter 7, he does say that it was Lag B'Omer. The Alter Rebbe brings it in many of his Maimorim, and there are other places. So there are sources for it. But someone asked a question and says that he found a letter. Let me just read this question. He says, is the day of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai actually documented in any original sources to have been on Lag B'Omer? And he quotes a letter from the Rebbe to Rabbi Zevin in Tafshin Tes, where the Rebbe seems to be saying to Rabbi Zevin that calling Lag B'Omer the Yotzer of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai may not be correct. That the source in Pri Eitz Chaim is a misprint and should be changed in the Sefer HaMoedim Ba'alocha. Did the Rebbe ever specifically state that Lag B'Omer is actually the day of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? The Zohar talks about being in Simcha for us for the day of my joy, but the Zohar does not say that day of the passing of Rabbi Shimon was actual Lag B'Omer. Well, I think you misread the letter. The Rebbe is not saying, Pri Eitz Chaim says an extra line. Rashbi was nistalik and Lag B'Omer that l'kul alma. But it says that he was one of the students that passed away in the epidemic, one of the 24,000 students. And that the Rebbe negates. And he gives reasons, al pi nigla, al pi primius. That's the issue. So Lag B'Omer is the Yom Hilula, that's not a question. That line is questionable, and the Rebbe challenges it, and people correct it that may be that is a typo or a mistake or so on. So that's just an aside. But let's get back to the question, why is the day so special? So we have the two things. The end of the epidemic, which of course means the celebration of Achdus, the opposite of Leinogu Kovid Zebez. And on the other hand, the Hilula of Rashbi. So what was unique about Rashbi? What was unique about Rashbi was that he was Megala Pnimis HaTeira. He was definitely a master and a giant in Nigla the Teira. You find Rabbi Shimon, Stammer Rabbi Shimon's Rashbi throughout Shas. And from the Talmidi, Rabbi Akiva is one of the greatest. A different Maimorei Chazal, how all the students recognized his uniqueness. But especially the fact that he taught Pnimis HaTeira. So he joined the Neshmasa D'Oraisa and Gufa D'Oraisa, the body and soul of Teira, which itself is a form of Achdus. As soon as you unite both parts of Teira. And especially when you look in Tanya, Perek Lamed Beis, what does he say? The key to Avos Yisrael is Nafshei Iker v'Gufei Tofel. When the Sham is the Iker and the body is secondary, then we recognize bodies. If the body is the Iker, then bodies separate from each other. Every body occupies its own space, needs its own food, its own money, its own needs. The neshama unites us because Av Echad L'Kulanu, we have one Father. We're all part of one organism. Kulam Asimes. Umi Yudei Gdulasnu Malosan. And we're all children. We're all part of one larger organism. So when you study Neshmasa D'Oraisa and Neshama especially, Teira B'chlal creates Shalom Ba'elam. But especially Neshmasa D'Oraisa, you reveal the Neshama that unites us all. And indeed, the Rashbi united. You see, Sfardim, Ashkenazim, Chassidim, non-Chassidim, all celebrate Lag B'Omer. There may be some exceptions, but in general. So amidst that epidemic, that sad, tragic event that signified the non-respect for one another, Rashbi was the exact opposite. He epitomized love. By revealing Neshmasa D'Oraisa, the Rebbe Rashab writes in Sfartim Lechem Samach Vov, that Lag B'Omer is the Matan Teira of Nista de Teira, of Pnimis HaTeira. Matan Teira. Just like there's a Matan Teira of, even though by Matan Teira everything was given, both Nigla and Pnimis, but especially Lag B'Omer was Begili because of the Rashbi's teachings. But Lag B'Omer is the end. No, but remember we said all his Aveda is Eila then. And indeed in Zohar, in Edrazut, he talks about how Rashbi was revealing the deepest secrets on that day in Lag B'Omer. So Lag B'Omer epitomizes, Lag B'Omer captures, personifies the essence of Rashbi. And all the milos of the Rashbi, the Pirkei Dekoros, that he opened up womb, meaning blessings for women who had difficulty having children. So it says in Hayem Yem that the Rabbeim, the Mittler Rebbe, would go out in the field on Lag B'Omer and did mevsim, especially in the Indian of children. He opened up channels, blocked channels. That's what Rashbi did. As we know, after 12 years in the cave, and then the 13th year, wherever he went, he made a tikkun. He repaired. So Rashbi's Kedai Rab Shimon Lismach Alav B'Shas HaDchak. Because when you need Ashas HaDchak, you need deeper keiches, you need neshama keiches, deeper keiches. Ulifter Kol Ha'olam Kulei Min Hadin. You need to reach deeper levels to reveal the Chsadim Nestarim, to reveal deeper blessings. And Rashbi did it. Like the Gemara Taka says in Moed Katan, that Rashbi was able to interpret for his son Rabbi Lozer when he sent him to the sages to get a blessing. He came back, he said, they didn't bless me. They cursed me. Rashbi said, what did they say? And he told them. So Rashbi said, no, kol birchasin. These are all blessings. You need neshama, you need the pnimius to understand the blessings within that, within those words. Which is also connected to this week's parsha, which we'll talk about shortly. Parsha B'Chukesei talks about some of the techucha, the negatives. So he's seeing the pnimius even in the negative, even the shas HaDchak, even in the din. So this is a day that's so special. So it's somewhat of a mystical day in a way, because it's not so celebrated by any particular actions, except Simcha itself, going out to the fields, as I said. People go to Miran, celebrate there. But there's also other ways, which we'll talk about shortly. But I want to answer another question before we get to that. So the power of Rashbi, the schus of Rashbi is with us here. And that schus gives us brachas to open up all channels. And Tov Shemem, the Rebbe said something interesting like B'Omer. He said, just like he gave blessings, Rashbi, for actually having children, also open up channels if there's estrangement between parents and children. In other words, there are children physically, but there's something that blocks the relationship between parents and children, like B'Omer is also Yom Gula for that. Okay. Much more can be said, but that sums up. So it's really a day of celebration of Pnimius being revealed to Chitzenius, meaning Pnimius and Geshama and Guf, which of course, as we'll talk soon, also leads us to the Geula Amitis Vashlema. But someone asked the question, why can we listen to music and make weddings on Lag B'Omer? So I just explained the answer for that, for the two reasons. And that's taka the way we, on Lag B'Omer, we listen to music, and we celebrate, we can make weddings. I'm not sure, someone wrote something very harsh. I don't even know if I should read it, but I'll just read it briefly. Why we are not allowed to listen to music during Sfira. Why do so many people listen to music on Lag B'Omer? That's the answer. Because the reason that you don't listen to music Sfira is because of the epidemic on Lag B'Omer. It ended. And he talks very critically about it. I'm not sure where you're getting this critique from. I mean, the same place that says you don't listen to music says that you can on Lag B'Omer. And the plague ended. He says, Svira is 49 days. If they cease mourning and listen to music on Lag B'Omer, then they are directly going against Hashem and the Torah by proclaiming Svira is only 48 days. First of all, where does it say that 49 days was the plague? We know Lag B'Omer there was no plague. Anyway, bottom line is, I'm just clarifying it for this person who's asking that question. So now, of the among things that we know from the Rebbe about Ohel, about Lag B'Omer, I jumped the gun. It says like this. Did the Rebbe suggest that we visit the Ohel on this day? I saw a quote on social media that the Rebbe once said it's a good idea to visit the Ohel on Lag B'Omer because the Rashbi is there too, and reading upon on Rashbi's day of celebration has the ability to break all barriers and bestow upon each individual everything they need, children, health, and parnasa in abundance. Can we ask Rabbi Jacobson if he knows the source of when the Rebbe said this, and if the quote is accurate? My suspicion that it's not fully and entirely accurate is there, since there's no mention of Mashiach. Yes, we all want and need children, health, and parnasa, but we also need Mashiach. Well, it is accurate, and the Rebbe said it actually, one of the first things in Tavshin Yud, Lag B'Omer Tavshin Yud, the Rebbe spoke about it and said exactly that. The fact is that every Geula is connected to Mashiach. And Rashbi is connected, and so is Lag B'Omer, and I'm going to talk about it a little later. So the answer is absolutely yes, Lag B'Omer Tavshin Yud. Can we also ask Rabbi Jacobson how this can work? Can someone simply just read a pan on Lag B'Omer and then miracles will happen? Or are there other things we must do to make a keli to manifest these blessings? Well, like anything, you can ask this question about everything. There's special days that we have an opportunity on Eserotz and an auspicious day, opportune time to draw down blessings. The more keli you make for it, the better, obviously. A pan is part of it. Going to the Ohel, praying is part of it. But obviously, the more keli, the more container you make, the more manifest these blessings can hold on to. Last question. If someone lives very far from the Ohel, where can they read a pan locally in a place that the Rashbi can also be found? Or in different words, is there an alternative for someone who can't go to the Ohel? Thank you, and may the joy of Lag B'Omer and the spreading of Pnimis HaTorah bring everyone inspiration and success throughout every day of the year. Especially the biggest joy will be the immediate revelation of Mashiach and the physical Beis Hamikdash. Amen. Amen. Well, like this is a question that has been asked by the Rebbe. The Jews in Russia, for example, could not go anywhere. So many of them would write a pan, put it in a sefer, and they able to take care that the message should get to where it has to get to. So if a person can't go to the Ohel for whatever reason, so there are many ways. You can put it in a sefer. Today you can fax or you could send an email to the Ohel. So even if you can't, you could send a shliach. So I think the main thing is to know that's a Yom special day, a Eis Ratzon, a time to go to the Ohel. If you can make it, great. If you can't, for a good reason, so then find an alternative. That's the simple answer to that. Okay. Let's move on. This is, again, questions that came in. Why don't we celebrate with a parade on other special days of the year? Okay, so someone writes like this. Why do we make a parade on Lag B'Omer when only 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva were at risk, but we don't make a parade on Purim, Chanukah, or Pesach when our entire nation was at risk? So first of all, it's not a numbers game. It's not about numbers. Everyone has its own role to play. Purim, Chanukah, and Pesach, or in the order of Pesach, Purim, and Chanukah, have their way that we celebrate in a very dramatic way. If anything, Lag B'Omer, Begoli at least, is not as demonstrative. The question you could ask is, why don't we make a parade other times? Why dafka the Rebbe instituted parades? So let's go back. The custom was not a parade. The custom was to go out in the field, to take the children out, schools. So there's a sikha from the Rebbe, beautiful sikha, Lag B'Omer sikha, Shabbos Parsha Bahar, and Erev Lag B'Omer, Tavshim Mem Vov. I believe it's printed in Chelik, is it Chelik Lamed Tes maybe? No, not Lamed Tes, I'm sorry. Lamed Tes would be Dvarim, Lamed Zayin, I believe. Chelik Lamed Zayin, in the Yisofis, L'Kutei Sichos. And the Rebbe explains the connection to children is a few things. First of all, Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, so students. So a strong emphasis on Avos Yisrael of students. A tikkun for the students that did not show respect. The fact that during the time of Rashbi, even children were learning Primis HaTeira. And a bunch of other sources that Rebbe brings there about the emphasis of children, especially connected to Rashbi. The Rebbe instituted the concept of a parade. Actually, the first parade was on a Purim, interestingly, in the Shins, in the 40s. But Lag B'Omer became, of course, the key parades were on Lag B'Omer over the years as a way that the Rebbe used, a way to gather children from all backgrounds, from all over, say the Psukim, and celebrate Simchas Rashbi. So that's the way, like B'Omer, because Simchas Rashbi and connection to children. The other Yom Tevim have their ways. There's no need to add new minhagim. Pesach, of course, we emphasize children. It's all around the Ben Shoyel, the child that asks. Purim, of course, Chanukah. But the main thing is the victory, the miracles of those days are celebrated the way we're told. Lag B'Omer looking how to make Simchas Rashbi, so the Rebbe came up with the idea of a parade, which often leads to a picnic. They go to a park, as is the minhag by so many different communities and customs. Okay. Next question. Why is there a custom to light bonfires on Lag B'Omer? Now, the truth is, by the Rebbe, they didn't light bonfires. That doesn't mean there's anything against it, because it says in the Sfarim, but that was not what was done. The parade, the simcha, the dancing, and of course the farbrengen, and usually Lag B'Omer at night. So as far as bonfires, I'll just give a quick summary of the reasons given. Bnei Yisachar, or Bnei Yisachar, speaks about it, and he says a few things. He says, on Lag B'Omer is the day when a tzaddik says talkus, his full light shines forth. So one of the ways, and also he revealed Primis HaTeira, that's also shining a light. So it's symbolized by lighting a fire. Ner mitzvah v'teira Teira is compared to Eish. Another says that the day Rabbi Shimon, Isaiah says, but the day of his Hilula, meaning Lag B'Omer, the sunset was delayed until he finished revealing the secrets of Teira. The Zohar says that he also was shining so brightly the students couldn't look at him. And I'll quote from the Zohar. This is all in, I believe, in Idra Zuta that I mentioned before. the Idrizuta is in Zohar Hazinu. I'll give you the page if you want, 291b, all the way to 296b. It's the whole story of Rashbi's Histalkus. So it says like this, loosely translated. So Rabbi Shimon said that day, all my life I've been begging to reveal the secret, and up until today my request has been turned down. But today I received permission. I decree that this day does not turn into the night like any ordinary day. This day belongs to me, and I begin to reveal the secrets. And then he began to reveal them, and he said that Rabbi Abba, one of his students, should take notes. A fire burned around them, the Zohar says, and the sun did not set. He revealed hidden secrets from the Kabbalah until he reached the verse, and he continues. That the verse, the Chaim, that the Eibishter command, the blessing, life forever. Rabbi Abba said, says the Zohar, our teacher had not finished enunciating the word Chaim, life, when his words began to become increasingly imperceptible. Throughout the day, a fire burned in the house, and no one could come near him because he was engulfed by light and fire. So the Bnei Yisachar explains that all Torah is the source of all light, and that's why when you're revealing all the light that Rashbi was revealing, that was why it was so bright. And that's one of the reasons we light also a bonfire. Another explanation given is that many times it says Butzina Kadisha, the holy candle, about Rashbi as he's revealing the secrets of the Torah. And there are other reasons as well. I'm not going to go through all of them. Those are the primary ones. The final one is the lighting the darkness of Golus. Remember the Kedai Rabbi Shimon Lismach Alav B'Shas Adchak. That's why Rashbi has that power, and the light therefore all represents that light, the Deicha Har B'Cheshach, and dispels darkness and transforms it into light, like it says in the Raya Mehemna, B'Hai Sifra Deloch Yafkin Yisrael Mibegalusa Berachamim. That with this sefer, the sefer HaZohar, and Zohar means light, illumination, brilliance. The Yidden will go out of Golus by Rachamim, which adds even more, not just lifter min adin and lismach alav b'shas adchak, but berachamim, b'chester berachamim, b'teva nirav v'anigla, in a revealed and powerful way. Okay, good. Now let's talk about, since we're talking about Lag B'Omer, we're talking about the students of Rabbi Akiva. Of course, the obvious question, that big question. How could the students of Rabbi Akiva defy their teacher's cardinal rule about loving another? Rabbi Akiva says, "V'haftarecha kamoicha zeh klal gadol b'teira." Klal gadol b'teira. They heard that from their own teacher. That means that was his koch, that was his passion. How could they go against that? Most obvious question. If Rabbi Akiva was a holy tzaddik, someone writes, and a good teacher, and his main teaching is v'haftarecha kamoicha, how is it possible students didn't get the message and didn't have respect for each other? So 2 main points. First of all, one of the explanations, how was it possible, was not because of their weakness, it was because of their strength. To use an example from Kabbalah, from Chassidus, Toyu. Eiris de Toyu are so intense, Eiris merubi mekelim oatim, that it causes shviras hakelim, the shattering of the containers. Almost identical expression, the shattering. There's a Gemara expression that a tzaddikim will need a chuppah, each one will need their separate boundaries, because nichve b'chelposeh shel chaver, they can get burned by being in the domain or under the canopy of their colleague. They were very intense in their learning. And sometimes you get so intense, you don't tolerate, and you don't give the proper respect to the other. Not because coming from a malicious place, coming from your intensity, you're so committed. But it's ultimately not bittul. Toya leila shayu vara. Leila toyu vara. Did not create the world to become pustan vis, to become chaotic, to become destructive. L'sheves yitzara. That's why we have elam atikun with the eris and kam. This is already elam ateyu. Elam ateyu is an elam of gedusha. It's a holy world, but it's a world of disalignment, of dissonance between eris and kalim. Like we talk about Nodav Avihu, for example. They went into the Kedesh Kadoshim, into the Mishkan with tremendous passion and love and yearning and longing, as the Eir HaChaim says. But they got burned because they had Rotze without Shuv. Second point is the standard. Sometimes when something is so powerful, Rabbi Akiva, like by Matan Torah, how could it be 39 days later they built a golden calf? You have to remember, whenever there's great Giluyim, there's always a great Hisnagdus. Question is asked, Adam and Chava, according to one opinion, had they waited a few hours, they would have made Kiddush on the vine, which was the Eitz Hadas. There are different opinions according to that opinion. They couldn't wait 3 hours. But you have to remember, the Tzaddik Keneged and realize what the stakes are. Think of it this way, Adam and Chava were 2 people on earth. They would become the ancestors of all human beings. So imagine 8 billion Yetzer Haras in 2 people. That was the Nochas, that was the Yetzer Hara. It understood that if Adam and Chava don't eat from the tree of knowledge, Mashiach comes. So you think of, look how hard it is to resist one Yetzer Hara. Imagine that type of intensity. Whenever there's tremendous stakes, there's always going to be strong opposition. Rabbi Akiva was teaching Ahavas Yisrael. Rabbi Akiva was hoping that Mashiach would come. And then there's the other side. And that's why it's so pronounced, because you could also ask, why is it, it's the only time in history, no, but this is Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim. That's why Rashbi is even greater, because he did not succumb to that. On the contrary, he survived with the other Talmidim, the 5 Talmidim that survived, the 5 categories of Talmidim, as the Rebbe explains, because they had tremendous Ahavas Yisrael, which is not easy when you're dealing with very intense souls to have a path. You have to be balanced, and that's what was necessary. Which leads us to the next question. Why did the students of Rabbi Akiva die in an epidemic? Does not respecting another warrant the death penalty? Where in the Torah does it say the punishment for not loving your neighbor is the death penalty? Yes, Rabbi Akiva's students should have behaved better, but they didn't deserve a plague and the death penalty. Maybe Rabbi Akiva should have given them a refresher class every once in a while to remind them to have more love for one another. But the death penalty seems way too harsh. So what's really going on here? It's a good question. And lav dafka, this epidemic was a matter of schar neinish. It could be cause and effect, as in the result, like with the B'Shviras HaKelim. It wasn't a matter that God is punishing them. The fact that they could not get along with each other, students of Rabbi Akiva, just simply they self-destructed, like the Shviras HaKelim idea. And of course, to teach us this important lesson. But this needs more iyun. Maybe someone has a better explanation. Maybe someone discusses it. I've not seen it discussed anywhere, whether they deserve the death penalty, because it doesn't say anywhere, if you don't have Ahavas Yisrael, you should die in an epidemic. But clearly it was a special time and a special situation. But we have to always focus on the other side. The fact that Lag B'Omer, it stopped. The fact that Lag B'Omer is such a special day tells us the other side, that at the end of the day, the key message is about Nogu Kavod, to show honor and respect and love. Okay. Why do we say, someone asks an interesting question, why do we say Lag B'Omer, but don't say Tu B'Av? Yeah. I'm just looking for there. Why are we careful to not say Tu B'Av, even though a test and a Vav equals 15? But instead we say Chamisha Asaba. But when it comes to Lag B'Omer, we can say Lag B'Omer for the Lamed and Gimel making 33, but nobody corrects us and says we have to call it Shalish V'Shleishim Le'Omer. This question I have not thought of and I've not seen before. Interesting. Well, we know primarily that Rebbe did not use the word Tu B'Av. I think he corrected it a few times. Chamisha Asar B'Av. Same thing with Tu B'Shvat, I believe. We never heard a reason. But seemingly, you could say the same thing. But maybe two is a little slangish. That's possible. Whereas lag is not like that. I don't know if that's a sufficient answer. Lag B'Omer, for sure, the Rebbe uses, it's a language used by the Rabbeim, Lag B'Omer. And Lag is Taka Gimel, Lag, Eid Hagal Hazeh, the different Ramazim in Lamed Gimel. Tezvav also has Ramazim. So you say Tezvav Ba'ov, or Tezvav B'Shvat, but 2 is probably the key here. And again, the reason against it, it may not be against it, it's not a Torah language, perhaps. Anybody wants to add to that, please do, but that's my initial reaction. Okay. Should we be relying on the Segulos associated with Lag B'Omer? So someone writes like this. Well, the answer is like this, and then there's a follow-up question to that. Like all Segulos, a Segula is a Segula. The Torah says, Tomim Tiyim Hashem Alikecha. There's a way the Torah tells us how to live our lives, follow what Hashem wants. Hashem will send us blessings. We don't have to look for extra Segulas. But there are things that are considered a Segula. But you can't everything with moderation. You can't overdo anything. On the other hand, God forbid to dismiss a Segula, especially if it has a source. So the answer is, the Lag B'Omer has definitely a Segula for children, for other blessings from Rashbi. But you have to also make a keli for it. It's not just, it's not the mumbo jumbo. It's not magic. That's not the Torah approach. You have to make a keli. So the answer is, in moderation, yes. And when you say Eis Rotzen, a special time, an opportune time, an auspicious time. Say Mazoli gave it on someone's birthday. Mazoli gave it. The mazel is stronger. But still, Torah expects responsibility. There's no just relying, I'll wait for that day, it's going to be a magical happen. It doesn't work that way. Okay. But the question now can be said, Segulos don't seem to work for me. What should I do differently? But before I say that, let me say one more thing. I remember women who had difficulty having children coming and asking for bracha and Lag B'Omer. It was very moving that Rebbe gave a bracha. Because it was this Yom Segula. And the woman was really crying for a child. I mean, you have the story of Chana. It doesn't have to be Lag B'Omer, but Lag B'Omer was a special Yom Segula for that. So you see, the concept is there, and especially when it's coming from a sincere place and it's not some escapism or some sensationalism. So now, schools don't seem to work for me. What should I do differently? The person writes like that. How come Segulos never work for me? Every day for the past 2 weeks, I've been spammed in my email saying it's a good Segula to write upon at the Ohel on Lag B'Omer. Why is this different from all the other Segulos, like baking shlishel challah, drinking from a kosh shel bracha, getting a bracha from a chassan under the chuppah, saying parshas Haman twice with the Targum Onkelos, giving blessings to others so that Hashem blesses you first, dipping your pinky in Havdalah wine, giving tzedakah to Rabbi Meir Balanes, saying the 10 chapters of Tehillim Tikkun Kloli of Rab Nachman, taveling in the Arizal's mikveh, pouring enough wine to overflow your kiddush cup, and many more. I've done all these things, and they never work for me. I'm still struggling financially. What can I do different this year on Lag B'Omer to see blessings for financial security and abundance that are manifest in a revealed manner in this physical world? In a way, I can see the blessings with my physical eyes and with my physical checkbook. Thank you, and may Hashem bless you and everyone in your audience with revealed positive blessings in abundance. So the Segulos that have a mokir in Sfarim and come from Tzadikim obviously have value. But to rely only on them, as I said before, it always needs balance. What more you can do, I don't know who you are, I don't know your life situation. Maybe you have to talk to a mashpia and ask him, what else can you do? Are you overly relying on the Segulos? Are you not doing enough b'derech hateva, your own efforts? I cannot say. At the end of the day, Hashem decides, of course. But I would definitely use Lag B'Omer. Eis Rotzen. Someone comes and davens to Hashem, goes to the Ohel. It's an opportunity. Why not use it to the fullest and ask? And the fact that something didn't work till now doesn't mean it hasn't worked. It means you haven't seen. Maybe it's worked, you haven't seen how. Or you don't know that. Maybe it affected you in other ways. Maybe you've opened some doors, there's more doors to open. You have to keep on forging ahead. We don't always know Hashem's plans and mysteries. That's the general answer to that. Okay. Let's move on to that. We're talking more about Rashbi. So now let's talk about this. What can we learn from Rashbi living 12 years in a cave? So we know the Gemara tells us in Shabbos that there was a gzeda that Rashbi was being searched for by the Roman Empire, the Romans, because he was learning Torah, and they had decreed that anyone who learns Torah or teaches Torah will be put to death. So he went and escaped and hid for 12 years with his son in a cave. So what's the lessons from that? Someone writes, is it significant that the Rashbi lived in a cave for 12 years? Is it a lesson for us that we too should spend some time in caves for aesthetic purposes? You mean probably ascetic purposes. To meditate and study the deep secrets of the Torah. Is a cave a more conducive environment to study Torah than in a person's home that often has distractions? I never heard that quite, but you could say the idea of Terosah Menaseh, that Rashbi, Kol Inyani was Torah, so we hoped it didn't have to come through a gzeda, a decree. But the fact that he was completely isolated, completely insulated, completely immunized in a way, the miracles that happened, and it definitely turned him into a completely different person. So the first lesson is the idea that sometimes, have a Gelim Kem Torah, it says. Sometimes you have to go to a place that's very conducive, you don't have the distractions. Only come from good reasons, not run for our lives. So that perhaps is a lesson, the idea. A cave, I don't know, a cave, the idea where you cut off, the Rebbe often would say, Terasam Naseh, even when the phone rings, you don't even hear it, you're so immersed in your learning. So essentially it's about the seclusion of it, the isolation, in a positive way. Okay, but I want to talk about the other side of it, after the 12 years. What happened after the 12 years? So he came out, and it says he became so refined that when he saw the pettiness of people's lives and the things they were involved in, whatever he looked at began to burn. Physically, metaphorically. Hashem said to him, no, one more year. Go back a 13th year. I've explained it because 13th like bar mitzvah. You need more meichen de gadlus. Even though Rashbi was on such a high level, but he was burning the world, which sounds gewaltic, unbelievable. He's so spiritual, he can't tolerate. But the Rebbe said, I did not create the world to be destroyed. Like I said before. So we're now, after the 13th year, whatever was broken, he fixed. So we have both lessons here. One is 12 years, yes, you go to yeshiva. And yeshiva is supposed to be learning, that's your main focus. Then when you have to go into the world, you don't burn up the world with Torah. You use the Torah to inspire, to ignite, to repair, to refine, to improve, and to elevate and transform the world, and harness it toward elikus, toward godliness. So that may also tell us why the 12 and then the number 13. Is there a connection between Lag B'Omer and Moshiach? Perhaps because Lag B'Omer is also a celebration of Pnimis Torah, as we have a tradition that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote the Zohar. Absolutely. So first of all, the connection Lag B'Omer and Moshiach is, I mentioned before, Bahai Sifra Delach, with your Sefer HaZohar, which is the Sefer of Rashbi, Yafki Yisrael Mebegalus Barachim. The Yidden will leave Golos Barachim. Like I mentioned, Kedai Lismach Allah B'Shas Chak. He's able to pay to the world from Din. Shas Chak includes Golos. He himself was higher than Golos. The Churban wasn't there by Rashbi. So it's definitely a taste of it. And we know Pnimis HaTorah is the Torah that will be taught by Mashiach, Terosah Mashiach. So that's direct connection. So the powers of Rashbi are essentially Mashiach Dika powers. Geula Dika powers. That's why Rashbi is so much connected to Geula in that sense. Is it connected to the Zohar? Yes, as I just explained. because the Zohar is the classic work, the magnum opus of the Rashbi, and such is the Sefer Mebei Yefkin Galusim Mirachamim. So when you say when the Baal Shem Tov heard from Mashiach, Yefutzim and Secha Chutza, and that Osimar da Malka Mashiach, you can understand, because that's what Primus HaTeira has the power to do. And the final reason that the darker it is in Golos, the more you need Primus HaTeira. Okay. So if so, how does it relate to Chassidus? Someone writes, is the source of the teaching of Chassidus from the Zohar? And if so, maybe instead of saying the Baal Shem Tov began the movement of teaching Chassidus, maybe we should attribute it to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's not a stira. You could attribute to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he's like the father, he began, the pioneer, if you wish. But the Baal Shem Tov and the Arizal before him, obviously all are tremendous stage. Baal Shem Tov was the founder of Chassidus. The time came to reveal it in the form of Chassidus. The Rebbe already speaks about it in Kutzes and Yonshal Teres Chassidus, the difference between Kabbalah and Chassidus, which is not for now. So Chassidus is their question enriched, and also you see Chassidus explains Lag B'Omer in a way you can't fully understand it without Chassidus. The bridging of the Nigla and the Primius, of Nishmos and Guf, Eid HaGal Hazeh, the Maimorim, in Sidr, in Dach, Shara Lag B'Omer, and other places. Okay. And Taka, when we learn Chassidus, we're told it's a taste of Teimeh Chaim Zochar from the Geula, as well as to help us deal with the deepest darkness. And the Keichus definitely come from Rashbi, and you see the Rebbe clearly connected Rashbi to the Arizal, and then to Baal Shem Tov, and to all the Rabbeim. The fact that he said to go to the Ohel, and he said that Rashbi is in the Ohel. So you understand from that as well. So just like there's a spastusha de Mesha b'chol dar v'dar, in every generation there's Mesha, there's also every generation has the Rashbi of the generation. Since we're on this topic already, someone asks, who is Moses Dilion? Moshe Dilion? Rabbi Moshe Dilion? Is he credited as writing parts of the Zohar? Well, this is a whole discussion. Secular scholars have tried to convince, with their different arguments, that the Zohar was composed by Rabbi Moshe Dilion. But there's some very excellent articles you can look by Rabbi Moshe Miller and others that debunk their arguments. Especially the Kabbalah Meseda is that when they discovered the first manuscripts of the Zohar, the Yedei Dover immediately saw this is things they knew. The Ramban, for example, Ramban and his teachers, and before and after, they knew Zohar. They knew the inyanim of Zohar. They didn't have necessarily a manuscript in writing, but there was a Kabbalah ish mipi ish. So that's how they knew that the Zohar is this is authentic. So I wouldn't rely on secular scholars for expertise on this matter. As far as their arguments go, as I said, it's been debunked. You can find it online. Long discussion of debunking their arguments. So then what's the question? What about Rabbi Moshe Dilion? For some reason, it seems like that the manuscripts that were discovered, and they were discovered in two different caves in Italy, Manitoba, and in Mantoba, I should say, and in Cremona. That's why you have a Zohar Gadol and a regular Zohar. There were different editions. That for some reason, Rabbi Moshe Dilion got a hold of these manuscripts. We don't know exactly how. The Shem Agdelim, the Chidah, was very reliable, of course, talks about it, so you can look it up there as well. So he probably had some connection in disseminating it. And I believe it's also shrouded in mystery that he said that these are ideas not his own. These were written down. Did he do anything in the writing and the editing? We don't know. But it seems like the bulk of Zohar, as we know, comes from Rashbi, who told Rabbi Abba to write it down. And then there's different details of how that evolved. But bottom line is we accept it's Rashbi, and especially once you go to, like doctors, you have to ask a doctor who's an expert in that field. Who's the experts in this field? Arizal. the Baal Shem Tov, the Rabbeim, and they all attribute Zohar HaKodesh, Rashbi. As I said, the dissemination and maybe the collection of the different manuscripts, that was done by maybe Rabbi Moshe DeLeon or others through the generations. Okay. So we covered the bulk of this of Lag B'Omer. There's so much more. And if you go to chassidusapply.com, which is our website of all the 497 programs till now, plus other resources, you can find, and they're all time-stamped, previous Lag B'Omer programs if you want more on Lag B'Omer. Because I covered it every year. I did, one of the programs was Lag B'Omer time. What I want to use the rest of the time here is a few things. Let's talk a little about the parsha. And I want to talk a little more about some follow-up if we have the time. And let's see how far we can go here, time-wise. Okay. So parsha b'chukesai. This year, Shana Mu'beres, Ba'ar b'chukesai are separate. And we go into b'chukesai, often Lag B'Omer is right there. So the first connection b'chukesai and Lag B'Omer I mentioned before, the teichacha. And we have the Gemara in Moed Katan that kula hane brachas ninu. They're all brachas, Rashbi says. Like the famous story of Parsha Kisovi, that the Mittler Rebbe fainted one year when they read the Teichacha, and they asked him, why'd you faint? He said, you read the Klolos, did you hear that? They said, yeah, but every year they read it. He says, when the Tata, the Alter Rebbe used to be the Balkedi, he wasn't there that year. When the Tata leant, Herech nor brachas, Herech nor brachas. They only hear brachas. Because even negative things really have deeper brachas. There's whole explanations why it has to come out the negative. In Likutei Torah, B'chukesei, he talks about it. Chsadim, Nistarim. And the Tzemach Tzedek brings the Gemara in Moed Katan about the Rashbi. But also the very name of the parsha, B'chukesei. What is the lesson from the parsha? Im chukesei telechu. So it's an interesting paradox. Chukesei is from the word chukah, chukim. Chukah chakachti gzera gazarti. I've engraved these letters. I've engraved these laws, which is unmovable, immutable. When you engrave something, it doesn't change, but it says telechu, because it captures both elements in Avedis Hashem. On one hand, we have to have certain steady, unwavering, nitzchi zdikas foundations. And you can leishesu v'leisigra. On the other hand, the whole Torah, living Torah, is always growing la'afoshaba. You're always machadish. There's new, telechu. That's where you also find halacha. Halacha is halichis elam lei, al tikra halacha, halichis ela halachas. Halacha on one hand seems very rigid. This is the law. But then you say halicha, because it also has to be movement. So like a tree, the tree trunk and the roots, unwavering. But once you have that in place, then it's supposed to grow, branch out. So not chaz v'sholom, we add anything, we're constantly, however, it's dynamic. Telechu. Rashbi epitomized that. Teirasa Menaseh, his whole life was Teira. Talk about unwavering, but also the growth, what he revealed, especially in Lag B'Omer. The lesson to all of us that Judaism is not just mitzvah sanal shel mechanical Judaism, robotic, by rote. It has to be alive, dynamic, passionate, with chayis. It makes all the difference. When our children see a lebedika chayis, not just you're doing it like another routine, that changes the whole picture. And when you have neshmasa daraisa together with gufa daraisa, not just doing the mechanics, but with that passionate neshama, fire, then you transform people, yourself and others. Why are engraved letters, so that's what we learned from this parsha. Why are engraved letters higher than written ones? So in the MyLife Chassidus I talk about chakika. Eishis achkika of the tablets was engraved in the very stone. Eishis aksiva, yes, attaches itself to the parchment, but still it's ink on parchment. It could be erased, it could rub out. It's not from the very etzem of the parchment. It's separate. So we learned that it's two different types of connection. You can have a connection to something, yes, like letters on parchment, but it's still not one. Then you have the letters engraved. And engraved itself, Chassidus explains, there's chikika and there's chikika through and through. Like the luchas. It says even a deeper level. In Aveda, it refers to the deepest level of connection. There's a story, a famous story, I think in Chicago, Someone told the Frierdiker Rebbe that he spoke about a Siyum Sefer Torah. He said that every Jew is a letter in the Sefer Torah, and therefore is connected to Torah. And the Frierdiker Rebbe added and said more than a letter, engraved. A letter written is not completely one. It's engraved. It is part of the very essence of the Torah, and you're part of the Torah, and Torah is part of you. And what then could happen is dust can cover over the engraved letters. But it's only dust, and you can blow off the dust, and you see the letters reemerge. Okay. So, a few follow-ups. What is the significance of the month of Iyar and the general time between Pesach and Shavuos? So I discussed this last week. So let me go over that. Is it significant that Iyar is considered a month of healing and is the buffer between the exodus of slavery in Egypt and the receiving of the Torah? Is it meant to teach us that after a traumatic event, we need time to heal before we're ready to grow into the next stage? So I believe I talked about it. I don't know if I read this exact question, but correct, that is correct. That after Nigel Aleim Melech Malchem Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'Golam, from above, God redeemed them, lifted them up al kamfei nesharim, on the wings of eagles. Now starts the Aveda Mamata L'mayla in Iyar Chedesh Sheni, as I discussed, which is refining ourselves, healing on all levels. That prepares us after 49 days to the 50th day with the Shavuos Matan Torah. That is correct. Someone writes, also as a follow-up, the rabbi asked where the Alter Rebbe says that the period from Pesach to Shavuos is Ratzei V'Shuv. So this person writes, I think it's in Likutei Torah Pasha Semer, Usfartim Lechem, Memochres HaShabbos, etc. Okay, so thank you for that, and I'm sharing it. Good. Let's go over to another question that's connected to Matan Torah and also to Bahar last week. Why did Hashem pick Har Sinai to give the Torah if Sinai was the smallest mountain? If the purpose was to give the Torah in a place not too high up, then why even on a small mountain? Why not give the Torah in a valley or somewhere below sea level? If Sinai teaches us the lesson of humility, why was the Torah given on a mountain altogether? So I believe I answered that, and the answer is very straightforward. On one hand, it's the lowest mountain to teach us humility. Mochich mukol teraya. On the other hand, you have to be a mountain. You have to have pride. Humble pride. V'salcha b'rechava. You have to go with an expansiveness. And that's the mountain. But within mountain itself, not the tallest. A humble mountain, so to speak. Humility, but with a strength. And feeling that you are a mountain, not just a valley or a plateau. Okay. Another follow-up is about the Rebbe not going to Israel, which I discussed. Why did the Rebbe not go to Israel? So someone writes, Hi, Rabbi Jacobson. I have two follow-up questions on the topic you discussed, on two topics related to Eretz Yisrael. One, why did the Frierdiker Rebbe go to Eretz Yisrael and the visit, but the Rebbe didn't? Okay, let's address that. Well, actually, in the last Sikha, Le'esata, that the Rebbe spoke to us, Shabbos, Parsha Vayakel, Tovshinun Beis, he spoke about it. He said the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't go to Eretz Yisrael, Mitzad Eretz Yisrael per se. He went Mitzad Kivrei Tzadikim. He couldn't go to the Ohel in Russia anymore, for obvious reasons. So he went to Eretz Yisrael for that. That was his main thing to daven there. This doesn't minimize, he went to the Kaisel, and it doesn't minimize his visit and on many levels. But the Rebbe, for some reason, felt the need to explain that. And as the Rebbe said, I just read somewhere, personally, of course, we all love to go to Eretz Yisrael, but we have responsibilities. That's why the Frierdiker Rebbe was buried in Chutz La'aretz, in the Ohel, the Rebbe too, because, as the Rebbe explains in Tov Shemem Zayin, Vayechi, Yosef stays in Mitzrayim with the Eden. It gives them the strength and hope, and then we'll all go to Eretz Yisrael together. So that's number one. Number two, the person writes, regarding moving to Eretz Yisrael to escape the anti-Semitism here in the USA, surely all the Rabbeim of various Hasidic groups regretted not moving from Europe ahead of the Holocaust, and if they had the chance to do it again, would have encouraged their Chassidim to emigrate. If I remember correctly, our Rebbe made it out on one of the last boats. Why wouldn't the Rebbe encourage the Chassidim to leave a place of anti-Semitism if it means saving lives? So first of all, the assumption that this is like Nazi Europe is an assumption. The Rebbe never said that. He never felt that way. When the Mashiach comes and we'll all go, we'll go. The Rebbe felt we can do much work in America. It wasn't pekuach nefesh like it was there. And there too, we know that not all the Gedalim knew or felt or sensed. Maybe the Eibishter concealed it from them, as the Frierdiker Rebbe said. So to just make a statement because there's anti-Semitism, we should all run to Israel, is that responsible? There's a lot of Jews here. There are over 5, almost close to 6 million Jews. And there's a responsibility we have. On the other hand, the Rebbe did encourage. He sent shluchim there, and certain people he suggested, or he encouraged, or he agreed to. I think it's case by case. As I discussed at length, if you feel the need and all the right circumstances, talk to Arav, talk to Mashpia, Chassidish Mashpia, and see what they say. That regarding that. Okay. A few more things. Let's conclude with a discussion, since there's a war with Hamas, unfortunately. Someone writes like this: why are we not gathering every day and holding prayer vigils and public reciting of Torah and Tehillim and giving tzedakah, beseeching heaven to free the hostages and end this evil war? Why are we not gathering in large groups in our communities and taking to the streets every single day and having peaceful rallies with prayer vigils and the public reciting of Torah and Tehillim? And I'm just reading the longer version of it, so it's a little repetitive. And giving charity in order to annul this evil heavenly decree that there should be a period of unrest in the world. Every single day in every community around the world, we should gather even for just 10 minutes and daven that the hostages should be safely returned right away. Absolutely. And you don't have to wait for a vigil. You can do it yourself. I know many people that do it. Add every day extra Torah, Tefillah, tzedakah, Tehillim. Those that can create a gathering. Unfortunately, people, as you know, time passes, become more complacent. I don't like to say that word. Maybe it's harder to bring more people out. In the beginning, it was easier. But whatever we can do, we have to wake each other up. There's no question about it. This is our fight. This is our war. It's not just about them. And we have to beseech Hashem in every possible way and not rest 1 second. So I totally agree. Another person writes, where are our leaders? Where are our leaders? Well, I don't know where the leaders are. I don't think there are leaders. There are individuals, perhaps, that may be saying something positively. We have no leaders. We have panderers, administrators, politicians. I mean, they don't have leaders. The only one I could say, even though I'm in a little negabed over President Milei, Javier Milei in Argentina, has a certain leadership quality, and I wish him all the best. He should be matzliach, because he can definitely help the world today. But I don't have an answer to that. So we have to all rise to the occasion and be leaders, to offer clarity and direction and guidance, and above all, hope and strength. And we have the Rebbe, who gave us direction, the 6-day war, Yom Kippur War, and the battles afterwards, that we should forge ahead and be strong, and we will prevail. And tak on this day, Rashbi, b'schusei Rashbi, this day, Yom Simchosei, Yom Hilula of Rashbi, kedai Rabbi Shimon lismach alav b'shas adchak, yechen lifter kolem kulem min adin, yafkem be'megalusa be'rachamim, that all that should be fulfilled be'rachamim, and the families that have been broken should be healed, should be comforted. The hostages should be released, untouched, intact. The war should come to an end. Should be Shalom al Yisrael, and the eradication of all our enemies, Emel Faralmo, with from this Gula of Lag B'Omer to the Gula Amitis V'Ashlema, Mamish now. This has been MyLife Chassidus Applied, episode 498. Please, again, support and partner with us at mylife500.com. Any amount is welcome and appreciated to be able to continue this program, expand it, its derivatives, as you can see all there on the page, special page we've created there. Thank you again. A freilich and Lag B'Omer, a freilich and Tamid, and only Psudas Tevas, B'Tev, Hanira, V'Nigla.
This program is brought to you by MyLife Chassidus Applied. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at chassidusapply.com/donate.